Rick Simpson, he's just buggered off, and he should come back to Canada. They're not putting an old man like him in jail, so I don't know what he's worried about. He does not really stand the likelihood of going to jail for any length of time. And if he was really growing things out for medical reasons, he should make that claim to the court. Mm-hmm. And, he should stop floating around Europe, and he should come back to Canada. And if you're going to be a hero, running away is not the way to be it. If you're going to be a hero, you've got to face up to what you've done and defend it honestly and straightforwardly, like I would plan to do. And then, you take what comes. And if you get martyred, that's worth it in the long run. Being free is only a relevant value, if your message is fully out there. But I think Rick Simpson, he should come back to Canada and become even a bigger star, go to court, and defend himself. I doubt very much he'll go to jail. And I think that's unfortunately what it is. He's running away because he's afraid of jail. And if you're going to be a superstar in this industry, this business, this political activity, this kind of thing, then you cannot be afraid. You cannot have fear. You can't be going away and running off and staying around in Europe and going from couch to couch and stuff like that. You have to come back here and explain what you did and explain the righteousness of it, and then trust that the Canadian people will get you out over time, which is what I'm putting my faith in, and I think that's the way to go.
Right, and that's why I got a lot of respect for you, Mr. Marc Emery. And there's another thing I wanted to ask you about is what we're seeing going here locally, around here in Toronto. Recently, there was a Compassion Club, CALM, that was raided.
And it's an excellent Compassion Club. It's been around 12 years. It's run by my friend Neve, an excellent fellow, who organizes the Toronto Freedom Festival, which I'll be at in a few days. And hopefully we'll have some great weather, and we can talk about CALM and get people to become more politically active. It looks like we're going to have an election here in 2 weeks, and this is a very important time to make sure people get out to vote against the Conservative government. They hate us. They hate the pot people. They're religious fundamentalists with a perverted view of how the Bible interprets cannabis. It's a wrong view. And there are a lot of people we can vote for, from the NDP to the Greens, and even the Liberals, and even the Bloc in Quebec, who would be a superior choice to the Conservatives as far as the cannabis culture goes. And as far as medical marijuana legislation goes, too, the NDP are more popular now than they've been in years, and I think that's an encouraging thing. We need to encourage people to vote for the NDP federally, and we need to encourage them to vote for the Green Party federally. My wife, Jody Emery, who will be at the Toronto Freedom Festival on Saturday, is a candidate for the Green Party in the federal election, and she's really pleased to be the policing critic for the BC Green Party, and she actually helps formulate a lot of the policy on cannabis here, and that's why we know the Green Party of Canada has a great cannabis policy. Almost all of their candidates favor full legalization and are willing to speak about it, which is really great. And the NDP has many members who are also in favor of legalization, like Libby Davies and Bill 6A and that sort of thing. So we've got support in Parliament. We have to get out and vote for them to make it worth their while. The Conservatives are praying that only the adults, the old people in Canada show up to vote, because typically young people don't show up to vote, and that allows old people to vote for the people they want, and then that means we are subject to the dictates of rural, conservative, older Canadians instead of, young, hip, modern, urban Canadians. Because urban Canadians, young people don't get out to vote as much, and that we have to change.
Yeah, definitely. And, with the, events going on, that's why, we hopefully get some people out to the Freedom Fest, and I every year I've been there, it's been, there's been thousands of people, so I'm sure there's going to be some people there this Saturday for the marijuana march, but actually a few blocks away from the station is Yonge Dundas Square, and last week there was actually a protest there, a 420 hash mob. And then there was some sort of incident that got in mainstream media because there was some sort of incident with a gun that happened there. Yeah, well, some gang member took a gun, but he was quickly subdued by the potheads, who are far more alert than people might give us credit for, and they disarmed that fellow in no time at all. But unfortunately, the media likes sensational things, and so they focused on the fact that some guy brought a gun to an otherwise peaceful, huge rally of several thousand people. So, but you know what? We didn't see much about the gun part out in Western Canada. We mostly just saw the large crowds in Toronto, and that was awesome, and these spectacularly large crowds in Ottawa. Parliament Hill, I've never seen it so filled with people.
out to celebrate the cannabis culture. That was a massive, large group of people there. It was impressive to see.
No, well, yeah, and okay? So you just mentioned Parliament Hill, and I was just about to ask you about the situation in Ottawa, because you're even saying that you think there could be an election coming soon.
Very soon, very soon. And I think the Conservatives are so contemptuous of democracy, of Parliament, of the Canadian people, that, I can't wait to have an election. And I think if Stephen Harper doesn't get his majority, which I'm not convinced he will, then I think the Conservatives will not form the government, because the others will have a coalition and form it. They're just not letting Stephen Harper have another chance. If they can actually get up the nerve to have a non-confidence motion, and let's get this election on the road.
Right, for sure. And the the situation here in Canada. I was about to ask you about, or I want to ask you about your experiences recently in Vancouver with the where you had the Winter Olympics, because there's a major event coming up here in Toronto. And the New World Order is coming to town for Toronto at the end of June for the G20 summit.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, with your experience in Vancouver in the Winter Olympics, do you have any recommendations for people here in Toronto about what will happen to the city, I guess, when these major events?
Well, if I were going to protest the G20 or the G8, I would zero in on something specific. Outbursts of anger where you're coming with black flags and screaming for the cameras, even though that's a gratuitous, fun thing, is really counterproductive. I'm hoping the people who protest the G20 will protest the worldwide prohibition that we have, because that's something young people can really relate to. All these governments that are attending the G20 have prohibition policies in effect that jail people in their country, and that's what I think our people should emphasize if they're going to go out and protest. Is prohibition is in all these 20 countries. It soaks up billions of dollars in valuable funds. It's completely counterproductive. The more we enforce the drug war, the more crime and violence we have. And all these things are easy to explain to people and are factually based. So when we protest the G20 next month, I think we should focus in on the prohibition policies of those countries, because it's something young people can really relate to, something specific we can ask them to get rid of that will benefit everybody. That's a win-win thing, is to get rid of prohibition policies. Save money, increase civil liberties, increase the benefits to the people, free the weed. All those things would be great things to point out to the G20.
For sure. And, we just got a question here sent in from a listener in Toronto. And it says, "Yo, Mark, do you have a favorite strain of Mary Jane?"
I do. You never see it, though. It's called White Widow.